So you are a veteran, not just of Wall Street, but also of Washington. Give us some perspective on this, on what is developing right now with the White House. Is this a big deal, or is this the press and some inside the Beltway people making a big deal out of it?
Well, no, I think at the moment, by any definition, it's a big deal. You've got all these potential contacts with the Russians. You've got nominees withdrawing because of all kinds of very bizarre personal problems. You've got, by all accounts, chaos in the White House. You've got the most inexperienced White House staff certainly I've ever seen in about 40 years of being in and around Washington. I don't know how it ends, but right now, this is a big deal.
Now, in fairness, go all the way back to the early days of the Clinton administration. In the early days of the Clinton administration, if we were sitting around, we'd be saying, boy, there's a lot of chaos in the White House. They're having a tough time getting it on. Remember, don't ask, don't tell? I mean, they got mired in that. So should we really take a breath and see how this plays out?
Well, sure, absolutely. As I said, this could play out any number of ways, and I would not rule out them getting their act together and pulling this all together and moving the ship forward. But I think there are two important differences between this and the Clinton administration. One, Clinton made some personnel mistakes, shall we say, and had to make some changes and reorganize, but at least most of the people he brought in had significant government experience and significant White House experience. You have the opposite here. And secondly, you didn't have allegations of criminal behavior and of contacts with the Russians and all kinds of things that are really out of spy novels and not out of the real world. So I think this is a different order of magnitude than the Clinton administration.
Steve, you say it's a big deal. A big deal for who? Should it be a big deal for investors?
Well, this is one of the oddities, and you guys have been talking about it. You have this incredible disconnect between Wall Street and Washington. You've got Washington in complete disarray, and if you spend any time there, you talk to anybody, they're scared, they're worried, they're depressed, they're all these things. And the stock market, as you just said 2 minutes ago, is hitting record highs every day. So should the market be more concerned? You know, it's what we would call, I think, on Wall Street a tail risk. You know, the possibility that we're going to find out that there was some secret deal with the Russians and the Trump campaign or something like that. You know, these are relatively low probability risks, and so the market is more focused on strong economy, strong profits, and the possibility of some policies they'll like.
Well, let's talk about the policies and the potential for them. You take an issue like Andy Puzder, who's now withdrawn as the president's nominee for Labour Secretary. Do you see that as a specific issue to Andy Puzder, the Republican pushback there, or does that bleed into more market-critical things like tax reform?
I see it as very specific to Andy Puzder, but that said, I think there is a significant risk to his policy agenda out of all this personnel chaos. You've seen this before in other administrations, that when you have internal issues of one sort or another, it makes it much more difficult to get your policy agenda through. First of all, they don't even have the people yet, you know, to rewrite all these regulations and all things he wants to do. And secondly, as you know, there's significant disagreement even within the Republican Party on many of these policies. And when you layer on top of that all the distractions of all this other stuff, I think it has a very distinct possibility of slowing down his policy agenda in a meaningful way.
So before you had all this, Steve, you had a jam-packed agenda, and it wasn't clear what went first. Is Obamacare going first? Is tax reform going first? Who's the quarterback at this point? Is the president the quarterback? Is Mitch McConnell the quarterback?
There is no quarterback, and that's part of the problem. The president said very casually the other day that he expected to release a tax plan in 2 weeks. Paul Ryan's people sort of said, well, what is that all about? We thought we were releasing a tax plan. And so there's nobody really in charge, and you have very distinct centers of gravity between the branches of the government, and certainly even within the branch of the executive branch. So the answer is nobody. I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen first, when it's going to happen, what it's going to be, or anything.
So again, coming back to as an investor, as you look at these things, do you say, let me just put my pencil down and wait till I find out what happens? Do you try to anticipate the tail risk? How do you take that into account?
Well, we did take some money out of the markets before the election. Turned out to be early, so you know we don't get, and it just shows you how hard it is to time markets. So we are a bit more in cash than we would normally be. But that said, we're not traders. We're investors. I don't know how to time markets. I don't know how to play the Trump trade, and so we try to do long-term investing and hope it'll work out.